the castle inside. What could a futuristic robot movie like Wall-E possibly have to do with ancient mysticism? At first glance, nothing. One is a Pixar story about a rusty robot cleaning up Earth's trash. The other comes from Teresa of Ávila, a 16th-century nun who spent her life describing the soul's inner life as a vast, crystal castle. But here's the twist. They're telling the same story. In Wall-E, humanity has drifted into distraction, glued to screens, numbed out by consumption, lost in outer courtyards of noise. In Teresa's vision, that's exactly where most of us live, on the edges of the castle, restless and unawake. Wall-E's tiny act of wonder, saving a fragile green plant, is the spark of intention that draws him inward, step by step, towards something luminous and alive. Teresa called that luminous center God. Today, we might call it source, awareness, or presence, the deepest peace inside us. And here's the kicker, neuroscience now confirms what both the mystic and the robot's journey suggest. Our brains are wired with layers, distraction, intention, surrender, transformation, like rooms in a castle. Each one can be entered. Each one brings us closer to the light at the center. So what do a nun, a robot, and modern brain science have in common? They're all pointing to the same truth: the castle is inside you. The only question is, how far in are you willing to go? Saint Teresa described 7 mansions. Let's walk through them and notice how her map lines up with what neuroscience now tells us about the human mind. The first mansion is distraction. Teresa said this is where the soul first wakes to possibility, but is overwhelmed by noise. In Wall-E, it's the Axiom starship, people slumped in hover chairs, screens glowing in front of their faces, completely unaware of the life around them. Humanity here is spiritually asleep, lost in the outer courtyard of the castle. Neuroscience calls this the default mode network in overdrive, endless chatter, restless scrolling, no center. The second mansion is intention. Here, the soul begins to seek. Wall-E shows us this through his childlike curiosity. He gathers small treasures, examines them, and finally discovers a fragile green plant. Something in him longs for more than mechanical routine. In the brain, this is the prefrontal cortex at work, effortful control, making those first, faltering steps toward focus. Intention is born. The third mansion is virtue and discipline. Teresa warned that pride can sneak in here, but it's also the place where habits take root. Wall-E embodies this in his daily routines, methodically charging in the sun, compacting trash, and stacking it into towers. He carries out each task with persistence and quiet humility. Neuroscience says repetition carves stronger neural pathways. Intention stabilizes into character. The journey becomes steady, though still fragile. The fourth mansion is the turning point. Teresa called it infused prayer, quietness, sweetness, surrender. For Wall-E, this is the silent, weightless dance with Eve among the stars. The chattering mind quiets, awe takes over. This is what happens when the default mode network stills, the inner critic dissolves, and flow takes its place. No longer pushing forward, the soul is being pulled inward. The fifth mansion is transformation. Teresa used the image of a silkworm, dying in its cocoon to emerge as a butterfly. Wall-E's near death and revival mirror this metamorphosis. His old mechanical self falls away, and something luminous, more human than machine, emerges. Neuroscience sees this in ego dissolution states. Rigid boundaries loosen, networks connect more freely, and a deeper self awakens. The sixth mansion is trial and shadow. Teresa described this as a place of both ecstasy and suffering, where visions appear and resistance is fierce. In Wall-E, this is the battle with Auto, the autopilot clinging to control at all costs. Auto is the shadow of the old order, the fear of change, the inner resistance that refuses transformation. For us, this is where the amygdala fires, where old wounds resurface, and where the shadow must finally be faced. And finally, the seventh mansion, the luminous center. Teresa called it spiritual marriage, the soul united with its divine source. In Wall-E, this is captured when Eve takes his hand after his revival. In that quiet gesture, Wall-E awakens. The union is complete. The luminous center is not thunderous or grand, it's found in a simple touch, a return to love. Neuroscience shows that in such states, brain networks fire in harmony, like an orchestra tuned to the same key. People describe it as unity, transcendence, bliss. The castle is not linear. You may move forward and backward, re-enter rooms, stumble in the hallways, but the journey itself reshapes you. So what does this mean for us today? Teresa's vision can feel distant, but its essence is alive. The castle is a metaphor for our consciousness, and the journey inward is both mystical and practical. Modern science gives us keys to these mansions. Attention training. Simple practices like breathwork or meditation strengthen the prefrontal cortex, helping us move out of the noisy outer rooms. Gratitude and awe. Writing down what you're grateful for or stepping into a vast landscape engages the ventral striatum, the brain's reward system. This sustains motivation for the journey inward. Shadow work, journaling, therapy, or deep self-reflection integrate the hidden parts of ourselves. Neuroscience shows this creates stronger links between emotional and rational networks of the brain. Flow states. When you immerse yourself in challenging, creative work, whether music, writing, or athletics, the inner critic goes quiet. Time dissolves. You slip into the middle mansions without realizing it. Each of these practices is like a key unlocking another door in Teresa's castle. And remember, Teresa's vision was not about escape. It was about transformation. The deeper you go inward, the more luminous the outer life becomes. She insisted that true union with the center always shows itself in action, in love, humility, and service. So the castle isn't a retreat from life. It's a re-entry into life, with clarity. At the very center, Teresa said, the soul shines brighter than the sun. You don't need to call it God. You can call it source, awareness, or simply peace. The point is, the castle is not out there. It is here, inside you. The only question is, how many rooms have you dared to enter?